Welcome, my friends of the interwebs. Before I start this, let me say I will be coming out with my Kentucky Colonel video in a few days, maybe 4. Needed just a little extra time to vet some of the people that I'm considering. Anyway, this is going to be a shout out video, but I want to do this completely different than any kind of shout out video I've ever done before. Kind of real life style, in a sense that the person I'm giving the shout out to is somebody I've known my entire life. So I'm going to tell some stories that will include, I think you'll find them interesting, but we'll see. You know, hopefully you do, because, you know, I want to do a good job for my buddy Scott. Anyway, this channel is called Scotty D TV. Of course, there will be a link underneath this. If you can, please go check him out. And if you like what you see, subscribe to him. He's good people. I've known him all my life. I mean, he's really good people. So his channel is mostly cars and some cooking. The car thing, you know, a lot of people do car videos. I even did a car video, but for Scott, it's a religion. It really is. In order for me to tell you what a car guy Scott is, I've got to go back to like the 1970s. You know, all the way back to the 70s. Scott, when we were kids, he grew up literally the next block over, across the creek from me. Both of us grew up very poor. I mean, I don't know who was poor, me or my family or Scott's family. I know that my house that I grew up in had been basically a double wide garage, cinder block garage with a cement slab floor that had been converted over to a house. 2-bedroom shack. Scott's was, I believe, a 1-car garage. Same scenario, but yeah, it was very, very small. But however, although my shack was bigger than Scott's shack, my roof leaked every time it rained. Every room had buckets in it collecting the water. The landlord, the guy that owned our house, the house I grew up in, he just was not interested in keeping it up at all. So at least Scott's landlord did a much better job of keeping up the house, because Scott didn't have to have raindrops falling on his head while he's trying to sleep at night. So anyway, we both grew up very, very poor, which I think maybe early on in life gave us something to bond over, because, you know, we were the poorest kids in the neighborhood by far. I mean, by far. So Scott was always a car guy. I mean, as far back as I can remember, he loved cars. Loved them. I mean, I liked cars, but it wasn't a passion of mine like Scott. And when we were kids, I used to play all the sports. I mean, I played football, I played baseball, you name it, I played it. And Scott was more into doing, like, for example, summertime I'm playing ball, he's mowing grass. He didn't have time for baseball. He was mowing grass. He had like a lawn service as a kid, as like 8 years old, 9 years old. He's mowing like grocery stores' lawns and stuff, or the grass. And but he was saving his money for a car. His fantasy was always to have a hot car when he turned 16. I mean, what grade school kid thinks like this? Well, I'll tell you, Scotty D, that's who thinks like that. You know, I mean, I worked hard as a kid, but I mean, I bought things like, you know, bicycles and ball gloves and bats and, you know, I mean, stuff like that, where Scott just saved his money. I mean, it was crazy. And I remember when we were about 15, he starts looking for a car. I don't think we're not very far apart in age. He's a few months older than I am. But I remember he's turning 16 fairly soon. He starts looking for a car. And I don't remember how much money he had. I'm sure it was like probably a few $1,000s. Maybe he did better than that. I'll have to ask him sometime. But he's looking for this car, and I remember he gives me a call and he says, "Hey, I just bought a car. It's showing up tomorrow." And I'm like, "Really? What'd you get?" And he goes, "I got a '79 10th anniversary silver edition Trans Am." And I mean, now this is like, this was about 1983 or 4. So a '79 wasn't crazy old. You know, and I'm like, you know, shit, a '79 TA, not just normal TA, the silver edition TA, you know, I mean, just completely badass. And I'm like, sweet, what time's it showing up? He tells me, I don't remember now what time it was, but he said, this is going to show up at this time. And I'm like, I've got to be there for this. I mean, I really have to be. Now, you know, like I said, I'm a few months younger than him, and I have you know, I don't think I had $500 saved up for a car, to be honest with you. You know, my plan was, you know, hoofing it. But, so I go over there, and this flatbed truck's coming down the road, and he goes, here it comes. And it's getting closer and closer and closer, and I realized that this wasn't a complete car. This was like a frame. You know, I mean, it shows up at his front door, and it's literally, it had been what had happened. You'd have to ask him the details. I don't really remember, but the front end was gone. I mean, the complete front end of the car with the hood, the front fenders, the bumper, the grill, all that was gone. The only thing on the front of the car was the engine sitting on the frame. The doors were gone. If I remember right, the seats and all the upholstery was gone. The back trunk lid was gone. The back bumper was gone. I mean, it was weird. It was just like, where's the freaking car? And I just couldn't see it. I remember thinking to myself, he's lost his mind. He's worked for the last, you know, umpteen years saving his money to get a hot car, and he's got a hunk of shit that he ain't never gonna see run. It was just amazing. But you know, here's the thing: Scott's dad, Big Jim, is it was and is, you know, just a master when it comes to body work on cars. He had been in a motorcycle accident in his early 20s and had become paralyzed on one whole side of his body. So he really couldn't work a day every day. But, you know, it was one of those things. He couldn't work every day, but when he could get his hands on a car, even just in the condition he was in, he could do wonders. In fact, this guy has some videos on his channel of his dad. His dad's got a motorcycle that's a three-wheeler now. You should check that out. He's got interviews with his dad, and his dad talks about being paralyzed and all that stuff. But anyway, and the modifications he had to do to this bike, Spider, is what it is. Anyway, his dad, literally, I'm not kidding you, puts papers. Now we're in Toledo, which is about an hour south of Detroit. Would put ads in newspapers in Detroit or in Monroe, Michigan, saying what parts he needed for the car. And there were some nefarious folks up there in Detroit, who would literally call at all hours of the night saying, I got you a fender, I got you a hood, whatever, you know. And they would meet somewhere in between Toledo and Detroit and bring back these parts. And in the end, I shit you not, that 79 10th anniversary Silver Edition Trans Am was showroom mint. It was amazing. And so Scott and I are, you know, high school kids with this incredible ride. And it was just, for Scott and I, it was special. I mean, it's funny because it was always his dream, but, you know, it was like when we went out in that car, we, you know, and especially when we got out of our neighborhood and we went to some of the richer neighborhoods, it was like, we were like, it's hard to explain. It's just really, really hard to explain. It was a really cool time, and it was a really cool car, and I will never forget that car. I will never, ever, ever forget that car. And I could tell you tons of stories about chicks we would pick up in that car, just all kinds of stuff. And those were in the days, by the way, where you didn't have the mad mothers, and there, you know, and you know, literally you could, as a teenager, walk into a carryout and leave with a 12-pack of beer. And so we had some really crazy times in that 79 TA. So anyway, that's Scott in a nutshell. Scott's just a car guy, and he's always been a car guy. He went from that 79 TA to I want to say an 84 IROC Z. He's had just some of the baddest cars. Right now he's driving a Mustang GT. He's just had some of the baddest cars, and he's just a car nut. His channel is all about cars and food. Two of the coolest things in the world. He goes to car shows. He shows you the cars he finds. He's got this hookup at this car museum, so he's been showing a lot of really, really cool car museum rides. Definitely a channel I think that you'll like. Definitely a channel I think that's worth checking out. Known this dude all my life. He's good people. He's cool. He's a cool cat. So if you can do me a favor and sub to him, I would really appreciate it. So anyway, this is my shout out video to Scotty DTV. Hopefully it goes over well. Everybody take care.